Hi there, this is Unmesh from PiXimperfect, and today I'm going to show you how to precisely check and match colors while making a composite in Photoshop. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop and we have the background and the subject already arranged. Have a look at it. So this is the background if I turn it off, and on top of it we have the subject already cut out. And if you want to learn how to cut out subjects, you can check this video out. There are several more videos on cutting out subjects. You can check the links in the description to watch them. Alright, now I'm going to be making this PSD available for you to download so that you don't have to spend the time cutting out subjects. You can start right away. So if you want to follow along, check the links in the description and download the PSD. So to be able to make it all one, make it look like as if she's already in that background, first, we need to match the brightness or the luminosity. And to do that, first let's create a luminosity check layer. And how do we do that? Create a solid color adjustment layer. Choose anything with saturation 0, which means it can be white, it can be gray, it can be black. It doesn't really matter. Hit OK. And just change the blend mode to color. Just make sure the saturation is 0 for that color. Now, as you can see, the color has been taken away. All the distraction of the color has been taken away, and you can easily match the luminosity or the brightness or even lighting. Now, you might think this is just a simple black and white, right? Why not just simply create a hue saturation adjustment layer and take away the saturation, or create a black and white adjustment layer for that matter? That will not work. It is different. Let me explain. If I go to File, and this is just for demonstration, let's create a 1000 pixel grid. And I'm going to create a gradient. Let's choose the gradient tool right over there. And on the left hand side, I'm going to let's choose the color bright yellow. Let's choose this bright. And on the right hand side, we're going to choose red. And I've explained this before. Hit OK again. Now, I think the red has to be changed a little bit. Let's make it a little more this color. Okay, doesn't really matter. Now let's create a gradient something like this. Now, if you print this and show this to a kid, because kids don't think like us, they tell you what they see. If you're fat, they're going to tell you you're fat. If you're thin, they're going to tell you you're thin. They don't think, they don't have filters like us. Okay, if you show it to them and if you ask, is the left side brighter or the right side brighter? Of course, they're going to say the right side is brighter than the left. But if you look at it, both have the same brightness level, technically. So if I go to the color picker, have a look. If I pick this color up, have a look, brightness is 100%. If I pick this color up, brightness is 100% as well. So technically, both are at the same brightness level, but according to human perception, and I will say it again, underline, human perception, the right side is brighter and the left side is darker. So if you simply had created a hue saturation adjustment layer and took the saturation away, it would have become gray. Why? Because technically it's the same brightness. However, if you do it that way, if you create a solid color adjustment layer, choose white or black or gray, and change the blend mode to color, have a look. It will show yellow as brighter than red, which means it's much more accurate to human perception. All right, let's get back to our image. Let's close it. I don't want to save it. Okay, let's create a curves adjustment layer on top of the subject. So click on the adjustment layer icon and let's choose curves. Now, if you make any changes here, it will darken or brighten the entire image. We don't want that. We just want to target the subject. So click on this button. This is called Create Clipping Mask button. If you click on it, it will only limit it just to the subject. And let's delete this point. Click and drag it all the way to the top to delete any point. Now, with the help of the hand tool right over there, you can click on the forehead or any part you want to darken, click and drag it down until it matches. I think this is okay. Now, a good way to do it is to zoom all the way out, just like so, and then do it. I guess for this, I'll be happy with this. Okay, now let's press Ctrl or Command 0 to adjust it. Remember, Ctrl or Command 0 to fit the canvas to the screen. Okay, now we have matched the brightness. Have a look at it. So here is the before, not matching at all. Here's the after, so much more closer. Now we have to match the color. And to only see the color and nothing else. No brightness, no darkness, no brights, darks, midtones, nothing. To only see the color, you can create one more check layer, and that's more exciting. Again, create a solid color adjustment layer, and this time we have to choose the hex code 808080, which is 50% gray, or alternatively, you can make sure the brightness is 50% and the hue and the saturation is 0. Okay, hit OK. That's much more accurate way to say it. Brightness 50%, hue saturation 0. Change the blend mode from normal to luminosity. Have a look. Now you only see the color. That's it. Whatever area that doesn't have color in it, that area goes gray. Now, if you want to amplify it, you can also create a curves adjustment layer to see it much more clearly. Okay, just like this, just to see it. And these are just check layers. Now, on top of this curves, let's create one more curves adjustment layer. And we'll click on this button again. It's also create clipping mask button as before. And let's match the color. And to match the color, we will use channels, different channels. So first, let's go to the red channel. Click on the hand tool and click and drag here. Does dragging it up match the color more with the background, or does dragging it down match the color? So dragging it down a little bit helps. So see what helps. Maybe we'll take it a little down. And this is very simple. You can get complex with it. You can choose this color, that color, and you can create complex curves. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're going a little simple here. So let's choose green and let's do the same thing. Select this. Does taking it down help? No. Taking it up helps a little bit. So I'm going to take it slightly up, just slightly. And let's go to blues. Decreasing the blues helps. So it helps us match this with that of the background. Now it might be more saturated, that's okay. Doesn't really matter. It should match. Now you can adjust it. I think I added a little too much green, so I'm going to just decrease it. Now you can turn these checks off and have a look at it. So here's the before, too saturated, here's the after. Now I think I've gone a little too far. Let's go to the greens and let's decrease the greens. Just like so. Have a look. Here's the before, here's the after. Just a little more arrangement to go with it. Now, to be able to see only saturation, it's time for us to match the saturation. To match the saturation, let's do this. And by the way, there's a complete tutorial on check layers. So you can watch this tutorial. It talks about all kinds of check layers. In this tutorial, we might not use all of them, but it's pretty cool the amount of ones that we use. All right. So to do that, simply create a selective color adjustment layer. Okay. And now move to reds and make sure absolute is selected. And then just decrease the blacks. That's all you have to do for every color except 3. Decrease the blacks. Let's go to yellows, decrease the blacks. Let's go to greens, decrease the blacks. And you can also save this as a preset if you want. Decrease the blacks. Blues, decrease the blacks. Magentas, decrease the blacks. However, when you come to white, neutrals, and blacks, move to whites, increase the blacks. Move to neutrals, increase the blacks. And move to blacks, increase the blacks. Now all you see is a black and white info on the image. Now what is that? The brighter the area is, the more saturated the area is. So the brighter, the more saturation that area has. Now as you can see, the subject is a little more saturated than the background, especially the thing that she's wearing. Okay, so let's create a hue saturation adjustment layer on top of it. Hue saturation, and we're gonna again click on this button. Now it might get a little confusing for you, so I'm going to make the thumbnails a little smaller. So I'm going to click here and panel options, and I'm going to make the thumbnails a little smaller like this so that you can see everything. Okay, now you can see everything. Now let's decrease the overall saturation here. Now again, zoom out and see which saturation works. I think this looks pretty good. -22 is good. Now this area needs much more reduction of saturation. So we're going to create one more hue saturation adjustment layer. Sometimes it happens with the tongue. And click on this button. And then let's just have a look at only this area. Focus on that area and decrease the saturation. I guess another -28 is fine. Now select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Simply take the brush and just paint white, make sure the foreground color is white, and paint on that area. Increase the flow to 100 and opacity should be 100 as well. Now it's all uniform, it's all looking very nice. Now you can turn off the selective color and have a look back in the image. So before all that hue saturation and after all that hue saturation, it becomes much more uniform. Now it's time for us to do a little bit of dodging and burning and matching the directions and how light is falling on the subject. As you can see, the light is falling from the left at the back, and that thing is maintained in the subject, and that's why we chose this subject. But as you can see, the right hand side is a little darker. We need to do that. We need to make that change. So let's go ahead and create a curves adjustment layer. Now take it down just like this. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Now don't forget to click on this button, Create Clipping Mask button. Now simply take the brush, foreground color white, and you can decrease the flow to somewhere around, let's say 6% is okay. Now simply take the brush, make sure it's the soft round brush. If you're using a tablet, you can choose the soft round pressure, opacity and flow. It gives you much more control over flow and opacity with just the pen pressure. So I'm going to select that and then make the brush a little larger and simply paint on the area that should be dark. So you can turn on this alert. I think this was it. Yes, this was the one. We should have named it. So this one is luminosity check. Okay, so let's turn it on and let's get back to the mask of the curves and just simply paint with white. Make sure the foreground color is white and start painting, darkening some areas. Let's zoom out a little bit to do that. If you paint extra, press X to toggle between the foreground and the background. Now we are painting with black. Erase that and adjust it. This looks pretty good. Now let's zoom in and let's just darken a couple more areas here and there. Okay, this is good. Okay, we are happy with this. Let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the before and this is the after. We have darkened that area. Let's go with white and probably darken this area a little bit as well. Now, I think we have done too much. So let's play with the opacity. Let's add a tad bit. 85, 84 is okay. Now let's just turn the luminosity check layer off. Now, as you can see, we have darkened it, but it has gone very saturated, right? So we can try choosing the luminosity blend mode. Does that help? No, it really doesn't. It makes it greenish. Let's choose normal back again. And to be able to adjust the saturation only on that area, let's create a hue saturation adjustment layer again. All right, now we will just have the same mask. So we can again click on the clipping mask button and hold the Alt or Option, click on the mask, drag it and drop it on the hue saturation. Replace layer mask? Yes. And then click on the symbol to open up the properties and simply decrease the saturation, just like that, so that it matches well. So let's have a look. So here's the before, here's the after. It looks so much more realistic. Maybe I need to just make it a little more saturated. This is pretty good. Now let's add some shadows and highlights to make it so much more matching. And to do that, we will have to simply create layers and just paint, just simply paint. So create a solid color adjustment layer instead so that you can change the colors later. So we're gonna click on the adjustment layer icon and we're gonna choose a solid color and choose black first, okay? And again, clipping mask, don't forget it, hold the Alt or Option, click on the line between these two to create a clipping mask. Now it's all over her. So we're gonna select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Now again, take the brush, flow 5 to 6%. I'm gonna go 4% this time and just paint over her according to the light. As you can see, this area is a little brighter. This area is not looking right. So again, you can turn on luminosity check and just start painting. So I'm gonna paint under her. Make sure white is the foreground color. As you can see, this area is a little too bright around the edge. So we're gonna just darken it. Just simply paint. Okay, now let's paint here carefully. Now have a look at it. So here's the before, here's the after. So much more matching. Now don't worry, we'll add some more matching elements here so that it matches even more. Now we are humans, we tend to get overboard. If you have painted too much, you can press X to toggle between the foreground and the background, and with black, you can just paint on it to remove excess of it. This is good. Now press X again and be very careful over here. Okay, this looks good. Jacket shadow. let's add dimension according to the light. All right, this looks all right. You're simply painting, nothing more. Now we have done that particular area. Okay. Now we can double click on the right hand side to take it away from the bright areas. So you can just take this slider to the left and just like this. Now it's very harsh. Hold the Alt or Option, click on it to separate it. Now you can do that kind of stuff, but in this case, I don't think this is looking very realistic. Nope, not very realistic. I don't really like it. So I'm going to keep it at that probably and hit OK. We'll have to manually do it. So select the mask again and take the brush, and with black selected, probably just add a little shine here and there in these areas like that. Again, this area, a little bit shine. This area again. This area. So we need to be as much realistic as we can. See how we are making it so much more realistic? This area will have a little bit of shine as well. So the areas that are bright, just paint black on them to add dimension, shine, and realism. Pretty good. Let's zoom out and have a look. So here's the before, here's the after. We might have to make a couple more changes here and there. Let's paint a little black over there. Okay. This looks pretty good. Now let's do this area as well. So we're gonna just paint black. Okay, at the back as well. Let's zoom out and have a look. She is much more fitting into the background. Now we'll just paint a little black here as well. Little black there. Okay, good. Now we might have to paint a little bit of white here as well. As you can see, this hair, it's darker than the background, which shouldn't be that way. So we're going to create one more solid color adjustment layer, not the gradient. Why did I click on that thing? Click here and then solid color adjustment layer. We're going to choose white and then hold the Alt or Option, click on this button again. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. And then with the help of the brush again, I'll just simply paint white over here. Now this time you can just increase the flow if you want to. Let's 38 is good. So we're just brightening some of the hairs around the corners. Have a look how you're doing it. Just a little touch over there makes it so much more better. Now let's get back to blacks and we will just play with it. It all looks good. It's kind of too much. Let's get the flow back to 4%. When you're doing with the blacks, when you're working with the blacks, just be a little careful. Okay. This is good. This is all looking nice. Now let's turn the luminosity check off. Now let's have a look at the blacks. You know, this is looking pretty good. You can also change the color to brownish color. So we can choose something like this and then you can change the color to brown and see how that looks. For your composite, it might work. But for this composite, I think black is a nice number to be at. Now, to make it even more matching with that of the background, let's create a gradient map and paint her with the background color. So click on this button and choose Gradient Map. And then on the right hand side, Gradient Map allows you to map the colors of the highlights, shadows and midtones. So on the right hand side now we have white. So all the highlights are painted in white and all the shadows, as you can see, painted in yellow. So we can click on the right and we can choose, let's say, bright yellow. And on the left hand side, let's choose brown. Just like we have in the background. Now this might not be accurate. So for that reason, you need to turn this off for a second. Or you need to do this. You need to hold the Alt or Option, click on the line between these two to create a clipping mask. The other way is simply click on this button. Now you can click here once and you can choose the colors to whatever you like. You can, for the bright color, we're going to choose this color. What about this? And now it's not picking the right color. It's picking white. What's the issue there? The issue is the mask is selected. We don't want that to happen. Make sure the symbol is selected and then when you open it, it will pick the right colors. Okay. Now make sure the sample is current and below. 11 by 11 is okay. You can pick this color for the bright area and you can change the saturation and all the other things later. And for the left hand side, let's choose this color just as a starting point. Okay. Now let's go back to the right hand side and let's adjust it according to the background. I think it would be a little more saturated and it will be a little more brighter as well. Be very bright. So let's increase the saturation. Now let's play with the hue, probably. This is good. I think it's okay. Okay, and for the left-hand side, I think it would be much more darker. So brightness, just let's decrease it. This is great. Saturation, more saturated, less saturated. Let's keep it at that, but the hue is not right. We will have to select the right hue for it. This is great. Maybe the saturation is off. It's looking a little greenish. What do you think? Something is off. I don't know what that is, but something is off. Let's go back to this color, and probably changing this color might help. Let's go to hue. Yes. Just keep on working at it until you get the same color as that of the background. This is all right, I guess this is. Now let's choose the left-hand side. Choose a brighter color. Let's pick this color. Oh, it's much more accurate. And now we are happy. Just hit OK. Hit OK again. And we are good. No, we are not good. Simply decrease the opacity. And start with 0. And then just slowly and gradually increase it to see which one works, which number works best for us. 53 is great. You can go for 35. It's much more natural that way. All right, this is all looking pretty nice, but let's add some shadows to go with it. So let's create a layer beneath the subject layer, just like this. Or let's create a solid color adjustment layer and choose black, just like we did before. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I, and then with the help of the brush, white as the foreground color, start painting. Flow 4 is fine. Let's add some black here, back here, to add some dimension. And let's add some darkness over here as well. Just some random darkness here and there. And you can choose the blend mode multiply, but that's going to be the same thing because it's already black. Let's choose flow of 10. Now we need to go back to the subjects and fill it with a little black over here. Let's go back properly. Let's do it. Okay, let's go back to this one. Yeah, it looks pretty good. We are painting black here and there and just simply painting to add dimensions. Okay, now after we have done all of that, at the end, I always suggest you do this. Add a global effect if you want to bring the subject and the background as one. And by global effect, I mean an effect that is applied both on the subject and the background. Okay, so these were all the check layers that we created. Now we don't need them anymore. Select the bottommost check layer, hold the shift key, select the topmost one and delete it. Okay, now let's add a color lookup table. And we're going to choose crisp warm like this. Now it's too much. Let's decrease the opacity. I'm going to choose the value something like this. Looks pretty darn cool. Now you can add unlimited amount of adjustments on top of it as much as you want, but I'm going to leave it at that. Probably let's go ahead and create a simple curves adjustment layer just to add more contrast to it. With the help of the hand tool, I'm going to click here and drag it down and click here and drag it up, just to add a touch contrast. And then maybe let's make the darks a little blue. Just a little, just a tad bit. I did a couple more adjustments and here is the final result. So that's how to precisely check and match colors while creating a composite in Photoshop. Just a quick little recap. First of all, we took the advantage of luminosity check layer. Now what is luminosity check layer? It's simply a solid color adjustment layer with saturation 0 and the blend mode to color. What does it do? It allows you to see just the luminosity. It takes away all the colors that might be distracting you and gives you the human perception. And after that, we took the advantage of the color check layer, which only shows you the color. And what is that? That is simply another solid color adjustment layer with brightness 50%. Just set it to 50. And hue and the saturation 0, 0, 80, 80, 80, 50% gray. Hit OK. And then with the blend mode to luminosity, it only shows you the color. And then we took the advantage of the saturation check layer. That was simply a selective color adjustment layer, I'm not going to do it again for you. What did it show you? It showed you the saturation in the form of black and whites. So the brightest areas were more saturated and the darker areas were less saturated, with black being 0 saturation and white being 100% saturation. By taking advantage of all of this, we created so many adjustments to match the subject with that of the background. Have a look. First, we created a curves adjustment layer to darken her. Then we adjusted the colors using a curves adjustment layer again. And then we decreased the saturation by using, remember, the saturation check layer as a reference, and by using a hue saturation adjustment layer, decrease the saturation. As you can see, this red was very saturated. We used one more hue saturation adjustment layer. Then we did our own dodging and burning. We did actually burning. We darkened her. So we darkened the areas where the light was not falling. But as we darkened it, it was getting a little too saturated. So we copied the mask and added one more hue saturation and decreased the saturation over there. And then we added some shadows, painted with black to make the light much more realistic, as if it was falling on her. And then we brightened some hair because the light is falling from the back. That area needs to be brightened. And then we added a gradient map to make her match even more. Also, we added some blacks at the back as well to add some shadows and global effects in the end. And here we are. I hope this tutorial helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe, ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss any other future tip, trick or tutorial. I would like to take this moment to thank all these nice, I don't know what the nice people are, nice and amazing people for supporting this channel on Patreon and helping keep PiXimperfect free for everybody forever. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.